Hello there. I just wanted to give you an update on the braking slash holding system for the little 2/5 axis indexer. Now these are the parts I had before, and I had to change them up a little bit because when I put the O-ring in it, there was a lot of resistance on the part, and I was afraid that when it got pushed out to apply the braking force that it wouldn't retract enough to allow the unit to move. It would still be holding it even though there wasn't air pressure behind it, because the O-ring was holding it in place. The O-ring was a little too tight, so I had to go back and take the inner diameter of that O-ring down so there wouldn't be so much force on it, because I didn't think it had to be that much force. So I had to go back and take a little bit off the bottom. I took about 4 or 5 thousandths off the inner diameter, and that's why it's got a threaded hole in the front. Let me put you up here. So this part here, I had to have a way of, I had this already done, so I had to have a way of setting this back up to take a little cut on that O-ring, and I was gonna put it in a little nest and put a couple of clamps on it, but the clamps would have got in the way of the tool, and it just, I mean, it seemed like the reasonable thing to do, but I don't think it would have worked after all that, because it's got a step in it too, and this and that. So what I ended up doing was I put a threaded hole here, 5/16, and I had a round piece, and I put a bolt through it. I threaded a bolt through it so there was like a 1/4 inch of thread sticking out. So I ended up screwing this onto that thread, putting it in a 4-jaw, and then indicating it, the OD of this, until it was concentric. And then I went in with the tool, and that gave me a lot more room. I only had from here to the pin, so I was able to go in there and take another 4 or 5 thousandths off, and brought the ID of that O-ring down, and now it's reasonable. Of course, it has to be, it still has to seal. So this is one where the O-ring, and there's still quite a bit of resistance on there, but yeah, I mean, there has to be some resistance on there or else it won't seal. But anyway, it's still kind of stiff, and so I had to put a system in here to help push this back. I know before I talked about, I thought it would be okay, but now I'm starting to think it wouldn't be okay. So I had to come up with a system to push this back, to get it off of that plate so it wouldn't. I got that sandpaper on here. I didn't want it, if the unit's moving back and forth, it would eventually sand that disc. So I had to come up with something to try to push that back to get it off that disc. Now I was going to assemble this and show you what I had, but I had it apart from this morning because I had to take that O-ring and knock it down so it's all apart. So I'm gonna assemble it so you can see how it goes together and what I did or plan on doing. But I put a pin in here, and that's a 93,000 style pin. I did that on every one. Now it's not a anti-rotation pin, even though it could be used for one at this point. See, before, when I put this flat on here, that was supposed to be the anti-rotation, but I now since added this pin, and that theoretically could have been the anti-rotation that I was looking for before, but before I didn't know I had to add this pin, but now I do. So anyway, I took these parts and I put a slot in here. So what happens is that this piece, I'll use one that doesn't have the O-ring on it. I got the O-rings and I have to put them on. But anyway, this is what it's like without the O-ring. And I'll use that because it's a lot easier to move than the one with the O-ring. But anyway, that goes in there like that, the same as before. And this is the 1/4 inch NPT that the air is going to go in there and power this thing. So what happens is that this fits on here, this hole in the back, so I can put the NPT in there. Then I got that pin there. And that pin is attached, like I said, to the piston. So that slides back and forth. See the piston there sliding back and forth. So anyway, this gets attached like before with those 4 holes. But I made this little piece here. This is actually a little piece of angle aluminum, which is the same as this. This is angle aluminum, and I just cut the shape in it. But this little hole on the end fits over that pin. So that slides back and forth like that. So I made this plate. And everything is underneath that surface. So this plate fits on there. And this still slides back and forth because this is just a little bit lower than that surface. About 2 or 3 thousandths. You know, I just sanded it, and I put a 5 thousandths cut on the top of here. I don't know if you can see it. But anyway, this plate mounts on here. Then it gets bolted. I was going to put 2 bolts in it. So these are the holes I made before. I had that piece on the bottom with the pin, and it wouldn't work because it would hit those bolts on the that's holding those plates, that disc. So I had to stop. I couldn't do that. Anyway, I got the sandpaper in there. I got the sandpaper over there. See, I got the sandpaper on there, and I got the sandpaper in there. So when it grabs that piece, it locks it up tight. So that moves back and forth, and what that does is that when the air that gets put in there through the fitting, that's going to go in there. It's going to push on that. Then there's a spring that goes in here, and that's going to push it back, try to keep it open. So the spring I'm going to use is this one, which is this one. But I mean, you can use whatever, you know, available. It might be a little different than this one. So I got these rods. One side is threaded and the other side is a clearance. This is a 632. Now what this rod does is it keeps the spring from flying out. Plus, if I wanted to put a spacer in here to make it a little bit stronger, I can do that. But anyway, I put the spring in there. And I put this rod in. One, like I said, one side's clearance and the other side's got a little tapped hole in it. So I just thread it into there. That just kind of keeps the spring from moving around. Now it's got a little spring pressure on it. So when the air pushes that closed, the spring keeps it open. See, the air is pushing it closed, then the spring will retract it. So anyway, I put that system on all four of these. And of course, it's not that easy when the O-ring's in there. It doesn't. It's not that quick. I mean, the O-ring, there's, like I said, a lot of resistance on that O-ring, so it's, but it moves it. But anyway, that's what I'm going to put on top of this brake now. And that's what all these parts are for. So I had to put a pin in there so it can locate on this piece to move that back and forth. And then this hole here is just for the rod to go through. So that's the update on here. I got a cut on two of these because that piece I had that's going to mount this to the frame was going to hit here, so I had to take a cut here. I just did it on the bandsaw. Just put a cut in there to give it a little clearance for that angled piece I had made. So there's two of these, one on each side. Then I had to put a cut here because of the plate that mounts there had to have a matching cut in it too. So I had to cut one hole out, so I'll have 3 holes. That's good enough. I mean, all I really need is 2 holes, but 3 is good. And I got these fittings because I have to have a way to activate this piston. So I had to buy some fittings. And what I made, but anyway, well, yeah, I'll show you what I made in a minute. But I got this tool I made a couple years ago for putting hose clamps on, and I'll show you how that works. It works extremely well, and I'll show you how to do that on another video, because I got to attach a hose to the end of this hose barb. So I got to use this hose clamp installation tool. And I made a manifold for this. This is the manifold. This is the mount. It's going to mount it on the underside of this frame. Now this piece here, I haven't, and it's not final tightened, or it's not actually in. I just put it in. But these are the pieces. There's an O-ring that goes on this groove here, and that's threaded. And this is a diameter here, and that's just a little hex there. And this is just a bar. It fits in there, and this mount is still loose because I haven't finalized this yet. But there's a pilot diameter inside of here where the O-ring is going to ride. And then there's a thread here that I can tighten this all. But this is like I said, a manifold for the air for the brakes. And you know, I had to have some way of attaching this manifold onto this unit. So I just made these little 90-degree angle pieces. They just 2 of them, they just bolt in. So this is going to be the air coming in. This is for this brake, and then this one over here is for the other brake, and then this one over here is for this brake, and then this one over here is for this brake. Now the reason I did that is because I want the hose to come from here over here and over here, because this unit's going to flex. It's going to go from 0 to 90, so I have to have some rotation on that hose. So by giving it the length from here all the way over here, it should be able to flex quite easily from a 0 position to a 90 position without kinking that hose. As to where the brake that mounts here and over here is stationary for these, so I can just loop these up, because that brake unit, it's got to be able to move in and out because it floats on both sides. All 4 of them, they float I mean, it's not going to be much. It's going to be, you know, just a little bit. But, you know, I want to loop this around so that they can float. And, well, that's the plan, and hopefully it'll work. I'll find out a little bit later. I'm still, like I said, I'm just putting this in here now. But the braking system on this, I knew it would be a little challenging, and it's not so much challenging as it is, you know, just time consuming, you know. But anyway, we're getting there, and we got the mounting system, so I can mount it onto the table. But once I get this braking system finalized, I can mount it to the table and want to try to make a cut on something. All right, talk to you later.